Hi, it's Peter Chapman, and I want to welcome you to another one of our SKUFood recipes for success. And this is our way at SKUFood of giving back a little bit to producers and processors during these really challenging times as people really try to reinvent their business and adapt to a very new business environment. And so much has changed since the middle of March when this whole COVID-19 pandemic started to impact our Canadian food industry. And we've been doing these recipes for success, which are presented by FCC every Wednesday afternoon to try to share some insights that give you some information that you can really take and put into practice in your business today. So I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us this afternoon. And what I'd like to do right off the top is introduce Gayle Palas to you. And Gayle's joining us this afternoon, and I'm really excited. Welcome, Gayle. Great to see you. And we've got both sides of the country covered today. I'm in Halifax and Gayle is in Victoria. So we're coast to coast today. So welcome. And I just want to give a little bit of an introduction so you know a bit about Gayle's background. And it's a great background and such a great fit for what we try to do here at SKUFood. And Gayle's the president of Grounded Strategies and also the founder of AgriFood U, which is a great website if you want to check out some insights about the food industry. So I would encourage you to check out agrifoodu.com. And there's actually a little bit of SKUFood on there too, right, Gayle? Just a little bit. So Gayle launched her career in digital marketing about 20 years ago in the British Columbia tourism industry, where she worked on accounts such as provincial and regional associations like Tourism Vancouver Island, and also BC Golf or Golf BC, which sounds like a good gig to me. So I might have tried to get in on that one. And but then returned to her roots in the food industry about 7 years ago. So she's got such a great background of food and also this whole digital space, which is something that we all need to be paying more attention to right now as we try to connect with our consumers. So she's an award-winning marketer with experience in online research, strategic planning, and also campaign implementation. And when you add that to her knack for data tracking and analysis, which actually kind of scares me a little bit, so we're going to talk more about that later. But what Gayle does is she delivers some great positive ROIs for her clients and also training participants. And I think that's what we have to remember, that so much of this is about is getting that return on investment. So it's exciting to me that that's a focus for her. And I know Gayle's a passionate educator as well and takes her role educating people seriously. And it's not just talking about content, it's helping people learn. And so these things lead people to sustainable business decisions and a clear path to profit. And there's that profit thing again. So I'm sure that people will benefit a lot today. And understanding that she's helped, over 500 agri-food business leaders across Canada how to grow their business. So Gayle, it's so great to have you here, and you got to unmute yourself so we can hear you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to this session.
All right, great. And just a little bit about me for those of you who we haven't met. It's my background has been in the food industry since working in high school at a grocery store, and it started there. That was not the purpose or the long-term goal, but that's where it ended up. And I spent 19 years with Loblaw companies working in different departments, and then for the last 12 years had the privilege of working with producers and processors coast to coast and trying to help them get their products on the shelf in the food stores and also then get the products into the shopping cart, which is what helps keep you on the shelf. So that's my background. And at SKUFood, we love working with producers and processors and really trying to help them understand and that it's not just about making great products to sell, it's about selling those great products you make. And that's what we try to help people do. And that's what our recipes for success are all about, where we're doing these sessions. And one of the things for me that's been so great is that our sessions are presented by FCC, and it is great to have them here as a partner with us. And I'm sure most people know that FCC are the only Canadian lender that are 100% invested in Canadian agriculture and food, which is so, I think it really gives them that deep level of understanding of our industry and what the needs are. And I'm sure people are familiar with FCC's support of agriculture, which has been their core business, but they also support the entire ecosystem that surrounds food. And they finance, food processors, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, equipment and packaging suppliers. So really from one end of the value chain to the other, they work with customers at every stage of life cycle, from those artisanal producers who are just getting started with great products to people who are exporting globally. So I know that they offer financing solutions that include cash flow, equipment, inventory. They also look at expansion, construction, property, startup, and diversification, and so much more. So if people are in this industry, FCC can be a great resource for you within your business, because I like to talk about selling products. Gayle's going to help us with a lot of that, but you do need to have a sound financial position too to be successful in this business. So we're excited to have FCC as part of it. And Gayle, I've been looking forward to this session since we started talking about it. When I hear some of these terms, I go, oh yeah, I understand that, but I'm not sure I really do. And it's so great to have you here to help shed some light on this. And I know we got a lot to cram into the next 53 minutes because it's a big topic. So thanks again for taking the time to be here with us. We're looking forward to it. And one thing that Gayle and I talked about doing just at the beginning is I think it's great to understand a little bit about our audience and understand where you're at in this sort of complicated world of digital marketing. And we'd really be interested to understand whether you really see that your food and beverage business has a digital marketing strategy, and or if it's something that you need. And also I did add a point there for people who would support industry. So if you work on the support side, then that's great for us to know that too. So, and Gayle, we talked about this at the outset, where people would fall with their sort of position on this, and I might have been wrong. I actually thought that we would have fewer people. So looks like we've got about, it's almost 50-50 between people who have a strategy and those people who have identified that they need one. So you're going to have to split your conversation right down the middle between those people who have a strategy and those who don't. So it's very equal. So that's interesting. And I'll just put the results up there so people can see quickly where we're at. That we've got probably about a third of our people have a strategy, and around 40% say no or no, I need one. And then we've also got a quarter of the people who would be supporting the food industry. So that gives you a sense of who our audience is as we sort of dive in. And the first question I wanted to ask you is, why should we care about this stuff right now? Why is that something that we need to be focused on right now?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I will do my best to address those the people that have existing strategies and the ones that don't. So please use the Q&A in the chat to sort of keep us aligned and make sure that we try and best serve everybody. Thanks again, Peter, and thanks to FCC for this terrific opportunity to share knowledge with the community and try and keep that food security in Canada strong. Mm-hmm. So I would say that, you know, one of the reasons that the obvious reason that people need to think about is that times have changed. So this has been coming for a long time, but with the beginning of COVID-19 and what we're witnessing is that omni-channel approach, so that multiple touch point digitally to achieving a consumer purchase has just been escalated with COVID-19. And so more than ever, people are using their devices, they're spending more time on their devices, they're spending their time differently on their devices, and they're making more purchases online. So we all know that. And I think that because that's happening, we've really been forced into this area that we have to then address these concerns. So if we were to layer COVID-19 on top, what are people really looking for now? They're looking for safety, they're looking for security, they're looking for reassurance. That's what we're saying, we're talking about. And they're getting almost all of their information from the digital sphere. So as a business that is in it to win it, okay, so not a hobby. This is not something you're doing in your spare time, but this is something that you really seriously are committed to making a profit on. Then being committed to having a strong digital presence and having a digital presence that aligns with your business goals has never been more important than it is now, because we're only going to see this grow. We're not actually going to see this shrink back where we go completely face to face. Those days are behind us. The other thing to think about is that your audience demographics are changed. So not as only has COVID, shifted the way people work and think about shopping, but the audience is growing up. And so the digital sphere is maturing. So where we were sort of maybe in a teenager phase now, we're all growing up. And so more and more people are becoming comfortable. One of the stats that I recently read was that 96 or 97% of people between the ages of 19 and 35 in North America have a smartphone. 98%. I mean, that penetration level is incredible. And they're using those smartphones to do almost everything.
I think I know a couple who would be in the 2%, but you're right. The penetration
level is crazy.
And I think the other thing for me too is that as more people are saying, I've got to be there, it's getting more and more competitive to get attention from people, right? So in an environment that a few years ago, you might have had this many people in there, now because they're just saying we have to, we've got to be there, and this may be the only way that we can continue to operate. Now you get this many people in the same space, right? So it's more competitive.
Yeah, and COVID has only amplified that. So whereas before we were getting, 300,000 blog posts a day posted, now we're in the millions. And, just look at the number of new podcasts that have been opened up since March. People are at home, they have more time, they're creating more content, they're engaging in more digital media. The other thing that's changed is that we're seeing a shift so not only in that digital literacy level from the participants or the people that are looking and potentially going to be your consumers, but we're also seeing that incessant growth in technology. And so what do we got now? We've got smart fridges, we've got wearables, we've got all kinds of devices that are coming out, and each and every one of these devices enables that consumer to engage with your brand in a different way. And that's that omni-channel explosion that we're talking about. And we know that that is how people are shopping. They're touching a lot of different places. So if you're not committed, I think, to owning your presence digitally, then that story is not being controlled by you. And so that's why I think it's really important to care about what is out there.
And controlling it, yeah. So knowing what we do about food people who love to get in and get at it, and I'm sure most of them would agree with us that it's important. So for you, do you think when we started talking about this session, we talked about websites, we talked about search engine optimization and Google Analytics and all these things, are they all equally important, or do you see one as being something that's more important than the others?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I would say, and this would be argued, like, let's be really upfront and say, this is all my opinion, and it's based on what I know, and so it's in my framework. The number one piece of, the number one marketing asset that I think any company has is their website. And it doesn't mean that analytics isn't important. It doesn't mean that SEO or search engine optimization isn't important, but your website is what you own. You decide when it goes up, you decide when it comes down, you decide what goes on it, you decide what doesn't go on it. And, one of my favorite sayings is, don't build your brand on rented land. So if you're going to build all your brand awareness on Instagram, and Instagram and Facebook decide to just turn off the tap one day, then your entire investment goes with it. So your website is yours. And then, so from an importance standpoint, that's really the key one. And then, but it's all holistic. It all goes together.
And I agree that the website is that cornerstone. And one thing as well for me as we talk about these different topics, and I'd be really interested, given your knowledge and of the industry, how would you define website, SEO, Google Analytics, but maybe with a thinking that we're thinking of the food industry here, not the broad space, but how would you define sort of each of those three components from a perspective of food and beverage?
Well, okay, so I don't know if you can pull out food and beverage entirely, but I think you can look at the industry as, like, food is hard. We all know, and food processors and food producers are busy. Like, I've never met a more passionate group of people. Honestly, it's unbelievable. All of the people that we've ever worked with are just, they're so committed to what they do. Sometimes when you're a really great maker baker, that's what you're really good at. And so I think that sometimes it's difficult to pull the pieces apart, or you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know what you don't know, you don't go there. So I would say that let's start with the website. So that being number one. And I think the definition of a website is different for everybody. And I'll give you an example. So if you were to define a vehicle, it would be something that takes you from point A to point B. But that can include a scooter, a semi-trailer, a van, a car. They would all fall under that definition of vehicle. And a website's kind of the same. So it's this catch-all. But your website is very much like that vehicle in that it has a functionality. And sometimes we don't look at it as the functionality first, and we should, because it has a job to do. And so what is the job that it does? And so that's the definition of website, because your website, the entire goal of your website is to get the visitor to take action. And it doesn't matter what that action is, whatever you define it is, however that marries together with your KPIs, your business goals, but your website needs to take action. And if it's not taking action, then it's not doing its job. Okay, so then you need to either get a van or a semi or a sports car or a scooter or whatever it is, but get the right tool for the job. When you look at that then, so let's take a look at SEO, so search engine optimization. And I'll try and hit both audiences here as the ones that maybe, you know, we're at different levels. And so essentially SEO is like, to stick with the car analogy, maybe, SEO is kind of like your turn signals. SEO is like making sure your lights work. It's making sure that everybody knows where you're going. So search engine optimization is a fundamental part of your website, because you can have a really nice, snazzy, great paint job, awesome looking website that has terrible functionality, that doesn't do its job. So the SEO component is what optimizes your vehicle. It's what makes the website do what it's supposed to do. So you define what it needs to do. So it might be that you want it to show up on XYZ, so page 1, which is really not possible anymore, but sometimes for really, really niche things. So you want to optimize it. You also want it to convert. So the optimization for the 2 sets of eyeballs, because you've got robots looking at your site and you've got humans looking at your site, and you have to satisfy both of those. And SEO is that aspect of it. Is your website doing its job? And if it's not, how can you do that better? How do you tell? And what do you do? And then the analytics side of it, or let's say the AdWords side of it. So SEO, let's just one quick thing here, takeaway. SEO is a long game, not a short game.
Right.
Okay, so you don't get quick wins, and it's going to cost you money even if you do it yourself. Like, remember, everything costs money. So you have to, but it is important to get started, and it does have an effect. So it's a good thing to do and invest your time in. AdWords, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, paid advertising of any sort, whether that is you know, done on a keyword basis, whether it's display ads through digital, that sort of thing. Those are more instantaneous. Get out there, buy it, hit it, done. So if it's a seasonal product, or if it has a short window, or if it's on trend or something like that, you can quickly buy your way to a position that you might not be able to get to organically. So there's a place for those in your strategy too, depending again on what your business goals are and your KPIs. And then the analytics component is like, I'll use a fruit stand, or I'll use a jam stand as an example. You make a great jam, you package it, you label it, you go through the food safety, you've got everything done, and then you just put it out there on the road on a little stand, and you have donations, and you hope that people buy it, and you don't pay any attention to it. And at the end of the day, you go and you're like, oh, look it, I made $15. And then you go back and do it, and then one day it stops, and you can't figure out why it stopped, because you never paid attention to where it came from. And so your analytics is giving you an opportunity to pay attention to what you're doing. And so It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be analysis paralysis. It doesn't have to be a data overwhelm. It can be something that you set up strategically. But if you don't set it up, how do you know if you got to where you were headed if you don't know where you started, right? So it's really, it's one, again, just one of those pieces, but they all go together. So is one more important than the other? It depends.
Depends on what you're trying to do, right?
It depends, and where you're at. Where are you starting from?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of that, if I'm a food producer, food processor, how do I pick that starting point? Because it does start to look at it, and you look at it and you go, yeah, right.
Yeah.
So do I start with the website and sort of try to define what my vehicle needs to do, whether I need a scooter or a semi trailer?
I would say I'd go back even further.
Even
I would
further.
honestly say
Can I go back to making stuff then?
Yeah, you can go back to making stuff. Like that's number one. So let's agree that today, as like me with my educator hat on, let's agree that the goal today is for everyone here on the webinar to understand that they are their biggest asset, and that the more that they know and understand, the better they're going to be able to make decisions. And so empowering yourself to make decisions is one of the best things that you can do. And this is, again, this space is not going to get smaller, it's going to get bigger. So you might as well embrace it, because if you don't, you're going to end up always relying on other people to make those decisions. And if it's a big black box, you better hope they're trustworthy and you got it right. But if you take some of that and you start figuring out how it works, you're going to be stronger moving forward. So number one, assess your own personal skills, likes and dislikes. What are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you want to do? What don't you want to do? Boom. Have a look at your business. What are your business goals? Do they need to be realigned? Because this is all about profit, right? If you don't have a clear path to profit, you have a hobby. So, make a decision. And I know these are really tough. I mean, this is our training, right? This is what we talk about. But I personally have kids, and I want them to buy food made in Canada in 20 years. And I want every single person on this call to make money. I want you all to be profitable, and I want you all still to be in business. And so if we can't match that clear path to profit, that's step number one. So look at your goals. Has COVID-19 changed things? Does your business plan need to be just tweaked a little bit? And then look at how every single thing that you are doing aligns with those business goals. I mean, that's what we're going to get to. When we talk about an investment, we talk about FCC and that money, it's the same. You're investing your time and your money on doing things. And so this is the time now to really be matching those with your plans. So start with assessing. What do you do? What are you good at? What do you want to do? What is your business good at? Are your goals aligned and are they clear? And then you can map your other stuff on top of it. Then you do a big audit, do an assessment. What's your digital landscape look like? Does it look like it needs a tune-up, or is it looking really good? Right? Like it can be, but it's going to be different because everybody's going to bring different skills to the table. Everybody's going to bring a different asset to the table. Some are going to have a videographer that they, work with and they can access anytime. And some people are going to have a fabulous website, and some people are going to be like, ooh, I think I need a rebuild, right? Or some people maybe don't even know that. They think, wow, I got a really whiz-bang website because I built a Shopify site, but they don't realize that the SEO part of it is terrible because they don't know what they don't know. So you kind of have to do that audit and assessment first.
Okay, so do that. And then you know that starting point, right?
Then you've got your gaps identified, right? Because you want to hit the low-hanging fruit, right? Do the easy stuff first, those quick wins.
And when you think about, and I do see we have a question here, but I'm going to just keep going a little bit here, but we will definitely address questions. And as Gayle said earlier on, we definitely want you to ask questions, because this is meant to deliver what you need, not exactly what we perceive you need. So, and I think sometimes the right answer is both, because sometimes we might know a few things you don't know, but we want to answer your questions. So we definitely will do that, and let us know what you have on your mind. So with your experience with different food and beverage producers and processors, what do you see as as the biggest challenges when you've embarked on these sort of projects with them, and you've gone through that sort of process you identified about your skills and the business goals and that path to profit, what are some of the challenges where you just kind of know that it's coming? You can see it and you go, oh, I know that one's coming.
Yeah, I think a couple of things, like, and we all suffer from the same thing, but again, food is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so the demands on the food industry are higher. I think the expectations too, depending on where you're in, like if you're in that growth phase, when you're just like running,
Mm-hmm.
and that decision on when to hire, I see as sort of a challenge, you know, because there comes a point where, you know, you shouldn't do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, that assessment and knowing yourself. So being a really good maker baker, but I would say in this particular area, you know, it can be a big black box. And it just is so, I have no idea like what is behind the curtain. Well, let me just tell you guys, every one of you, it's not magic. It's not. It's like anything else. Once it's laid out in front of you, you go, oh, wow, really? Okay, I can do that. Yes, you can. Like you really can. So I would say that if it's an area you haven't been in before, then the biggest barrier to entry is the fact that I just don't even know where to start. And in that case, it's like any other part of the food business. So if you don't know where to start with food safety, what do? You go talk to a food safety expert. Like go hire a coach. Find somebody who can help you avoid those big, crazy pitfalls. You know how one bad packaging purchase can cost you $5,000, or whoa, you didn't read that label quite clearly or closely enough and you didn't proof it and oh, you can't use those whole rolls now? Well, that is the same kind of thing digitally. Just talk to somebody and work out what you're going to do so that you avoid those really easy things that you can just, that could be pitfalls.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think that's great advice. And there, I know there are people who would sort of walk through that process with different food and beverage producers and processors.
Absolutely.
And I think it is important if you can find people who have some experience and some awareness of the food industry, because there are certain challenges that
It's very
are
different.
present. And I think if you can find people who have some of that practical experience along with their technical expertise, that's the mix that works the
Yeah.
best for people. So I'm going to go to the
Yes.
question that we have, and it's interesting because I think it does tie in with what you're just talking about right now. And so the question is how to establish a food brand in fierce competition with giants. And there are some giants. Every category we got big players. There are no categories that are easy anymore. So what the person's saying is, I'm looking to create a health brand, but it's so difficult to use digital against big food. Daddies is the word that they use when a person has a limited budget. So maybe if you've got any insights into that one, Gayle.
Okay, so an excellent question. Excellent question. I'm just going to pull it up to make sure that I can read it again. You're not going to compete with them. You're not going to compete with the big guys, so stop trying. Okay, just push them off to the side, because their audience is not the same as your audience. Your audience is going to buy on the features and benefits that you deliver and only you can deliver, and the big guys don't. So I would say that's number one. I'm not saying you can't learn from them. You can't let them do the hard work. Let them do the market research. You know, piggyback on them. Don't reinvent the wheel. You know, everybody knows, you know, you don't need to show how to boil water again. What you do need to do is you need to be more nimble. You need to be faster. You need to turn and burn. Those are the things you do. And what you deliver is going to be different. So identifying what that is different and who your target audience is. And it comes back to my little lemonade stand and the jam out on the door. If you don't know who's buying your product, it's really hard to target them. So spend some time really testing. So there's your analytics again. I mean, this whole thing is going to come back and be connected. Spend some time testing who's giving you money. You want those guys that are giving you money out of your pocket, find more of them. Find more of them and then go after them. So don't worry about having a big budget. Think about being a rifle instead of a shotgun.
And one thing that
Does that help?
I think that's a great answer to it. And one thing that I would add to that always to me is important to think about is take the approach that you're going to do what they can't do. So what are the things that you're really good at that they might be okay at, but what are the things that you can do in your own backyard that they're never going to do? And if you're going to start on a smaller scale, then what are the things that you can implement, that you can execute, that the bigger players in the category just aren't going to do? And a lot of times, if you think of that health category, we see a lot of products come from the US in that category still. So, you know, some of the markets in Canada might not even be on their radar. So figure out how to entrench yourself in the markets and do what they can't do. And I always take that filter kind of approach to it that says, okay, what can they do? But what is it they can't do? And I'm going to try to focus over here where they can't, where they're not going to do it. So
Exactly.
and I think that the amazing thing about our food and beverage industry is there are examples all the time where people are making traction and making gains. And it continues to amaze me every time I look and I go, wow, every time I think I've seen it all, I see another thing and I go, wow, who would have thought of that? So I think the possibilities are out there for sure. So.
And I think even now, sorry, Peter, just
No, go ahead.
think about the opportunity that exists now. So when you're thinking about your plan, because this whole conversation today is about your digital plan, right? What is your plan? Are you ready to make a plan? How's your current plan? Assess your current plan, you know, evaluate that. But what is your opportunity? And that's what Peter was talking about. And right now, if you look at what COVID-19 has done, it has made hyper-local very, very attractive. And people are reaching out to support local. How can you leverage that opportunity? I would ask you that. Why did you get into business in the first place? Why did you even start down this crazy journey? Because you had an idea about something that you could do better or different. That's your value proposition. That's your unique selling proposition. That's what you're going to do. Make it bigger, make it louder.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to go back to one more question here, which does sort of, it's relative to what we've been talking about. And it's from Robert. He's asking, what's the dollar amount needed monthly to hire someone to do your digital marketing and social media? And then there's sort of a second part that says, how long do you need a campaign to run to get results?
Okay, great questions. So one, digital's not a campaign. It's a forever. So marry your SEO and be with them forever. It's a long haul. It's a little bit at a time. But what I will say is it's like a big flywheel. You got to push hard at the beginning, but once you get the ball rolling, you just got to kind of keep the movement going. Okay? So you do have to make that commitment to it. If you're going to hire somebody, again, I would really encourage everyone here as leaders to put their CEO hat on, take off their maker baker hat, put their CEO hat on, and really think about how they're going to lead their company for the next 5 to 10 years. Whatever your exit strategy is, whether you're going to, you know, give it to your children, however that works. But really think, okay, what do I need to know to make good decisions? And so let's start on that journey where you do that together. So if you want to hire somebody, you're going to figure out what you want to hire them for. So first of all, do your asset. Who do you have on your team? How much time can you allocate to it? What is your dollars? So really, like, that's number one. If you've only got 2 hours and you've got somebody to do video, or maybe you've got a great photo asset library, or maybe you need a complete website redesign, like, first find those quick wins, and that's going to dictate it. So you're not, I don't think that there's a template that says I'm going to hire X to do Y, because I can sell you anything. Really, I can. You know, I can sell you whatever you want to hear. What's really important is that you are clear on where you want to go, and then you get that person to do that for you, not say, what do you think I need, and then have them pitch you something. So how skilled is your team, Robert? How skilled are you? How much time do you have to put towards it? Everyone wants dollars up front with no guarantee of sales. Does anyone do SEO on commission? No, unlikely. And is SEO your biggest burning need? Because it's your burning needs right now. Think profit, think money. So I'll ask everyone a question here collectively. How many hours a month does your team spend on social media? Just roughly. 1, 5, 3, 2. How many hours a month do you spend on analytics or social media, or I mean on search engine optimization or content creation? How many hours, if you spend 6 to 8 hours on social media, are you spending 6 to 8 hours or any time tracking whether that is working? Like, is that a great 6 to 8 hours to spend, or should you stop doing that because you can't prove that there's a clear path to profit? Here I am again beating that drum. But if you can't prove that what you're doing on social media, not that I think social media is bad in any way, I think there's a great opportunity there. But if you can't prove that what you're doing is directly connected to your business goals and your profit, your KPIs, then you should stop doing that and reevaluate it. Because I think people, this is planning, right? This is really about strategically planning how you're going to spend your time and resources, and you just do it kind of big at the beginning, but then you can say, okay, these are the 3 things we're going to focus on. We're not going to focus on 15.
And I think that for me, in terms of digital marketing strategy, is one thing that my experience has been that I see people, they make a commitment to it, and I see some different numbers coming up in the chat, and certainly appreciate people putting things in.
Yeah, thanks.
I see Carly 6 to 8 hours, and I'm not sure, Carly, if that's a week or a month. It might be a week in her business, I would say, because she's on there and doing a lot. I know, because I see it, and it's great stuff. I see 10 to 15 from Lee. A month, and then another person 15 to 20 from Shelley, 6 to 8, and we track sales. So that's where I was going to go. Is I think that I see people who make a commitment, and there's things going on and happening, but one of the best benefits, 6 to 8 hours a week, Carly, you're all over it, that is that we need to look at those analytics and marry it up to sales, marry it up to, is it driving people to sell the right items that we want to sell? And I remember in our sessions that we did with Carolyn last month, where, you know, she talked about, I can't just drive people to my website if they're not the right people who are going to commit to buy. And if that conversion rate is 2%, and it should be 10%, and those kind of things. So I think it's investing some of those hours in the other parts of the digital strategy, not just the doing. And
absolutely.
So how do you, and one of the questions I was going to ask you was, when you work with producers and processors, what do you see the things they're really good at in digital marketing, and what are the things that are more of a challenge for them? I think I know what I think, but I want to ask you because you're the expert.
Well, I don't know, but I think it's a pretty easy one for me. The maker baker is the salesperson. I mean, the role of the maker baker starts like this, very tactile. You are making and baking, but as your business grows, you do less of that, and your position changes. But nobody tells a better story than you. And that's what you need to own. And that's that CEO hat again, and that's that umbrella. You own your brand. Your digital brand is not just your logo. It is your brand persona. We've all heard about buyer personas. Well, your brand has a persona. Who is that? What is that? Because, you know, I did a presentation called "Would You Date Your Brand?" And it's really, really accurate. Like, if you have a bottle of organic milk and you're trying to date a vegan, it's not going to work. So be really clear on who you are. And so that's what I think the strength of the food entrepreneur and the food business leader is that they are super passionate about what they're doing it. They're rarely doing it for money. I mean, honestly, it's such a crazy market. So that passion comes through. So that's your leadership, and you have to maintain that message consistently across everything that you do. And when you think digital and all those touch points, pick a couple of ones, just a couple, and do them really, really well. But you guide that. You be clear on that message. You design the strategy. You design the plan. You say, this is the tone. This is the comment. This is the content. This is the message we're sending, because this is why I started this business.
And I think it is important that it does reflect that. And as you've been talking about it, there are a lot of similarities in a lot of what I do with people developing those relationships with customers, with retailers, because again, there's not a finish line to that deal. We can have a meeting, we can have a great meeting, but it's continuous. It's service level, it's delivering great value, it's your product selling every week. And it's the same with this digital strategy and digital, part of your business, is that it's doing it constantly, then looking and saying, okay, did it work? Did it not work? What worked?
Oh,
And I would guess that a lot of producers and processors are challenged sometimes to take the time to just stop and say, what did work, what didn't work, and as
or
opposed
what
to
am I going to do?
posting.
And I would say that's huge. And let me just be the one that says, I've been wrong. Oh my goodness, I've been wrong. I've had the clearest idea of how this is going to work. I've designed that landing page. I've built that campaign. I am 100% confident that these are the correct images and the copy that I'm going to use. And then the numbers come out and I'm like, oh, that didn't work. Like, it's going to happen. And it's okay. That's part of your plan, is being flexible. But the great part about digital and the fact that it does track is that if you are paying attention, and you're paying attention right, okay, because I can make any number look good. Okay, you want to get me to look after your analytics, I can produce any report you want that makes me look good. So you better know how to read your reports. But the good thing about digital is that it can tell you pretty quickly that no, what you thought was a great idea is actually not resonating with your audience. Well, I wonder why that is. And then you get to sit back with the team and say, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, let's try it a little bit differently this time. Let's try it a little bit differently that time. And then you're going to be like, oh, well, that was it. Who knew that was it?
Yes, consumers are not always predictable, are they?
No. Yeah.
When you've been doing work with different producers and processors and they're making that investment, where have you seen some of the best paybacks? And we've talked about, you talk about the ROI and things. Where do you see that they sort of go, okay, that is one that comes up more as a good return?
Yeah, I would sort of say that it comes to that initial assessment. Like, find your gaps and go after that low hanging fruit. So I follow the money. Like, that's my mantra: follow the money, follow the money. And especially right now, when with COVID-19, we have businesses that we're seeing actually, not that I don't think storytelling is good and building community is good and all those tactical things. I think they're all great. But if you're trying to keep your doors open right now, then you shouldn't be focusing on stuff that are dreaming. You should be focusing on stuff that actually are showing that return. And so in that respect, the big wins are doing that quick assessment. It doesn't have to be big and 25 pages long. It can be a really quick assessment with somebody that knows what they're looking for. And then you can sort of clearly say, like, oh my goodness, you've got this, this, and this, and you're not doing that. Like, marry those two together and it'll work. But it is, again, unique to that. Or you can do this and you can do this. I didn't know you could do that. You should tell people you can do that. Right? Like, sometimes that's all it is fresh eyes. And I think that's a lot of what I kind of do as well, Peter. Like, that's how you and I match. Like, I do the back end as well, but you can't see the forest for the trees, and I suffer from it, like in this, but I think food businesses sometimes benefit just from that. Oh, let's have a look from the outside in.
Right. So we've talked about sort of the beginning and the assessment piece, and we've talked some about execution, some of the challenges, some of the good, and some of the opportunities. Now, I want to just talk about the analytics piece a little bit, because, as we've said, I think people, they charge forward, they do things, but where would you tell them to start? And I would even suggest for my own business, I'm thinking, okay, where do I start with that? And how do I don't even, where do I go to figure out that piece if I want to get into it a bit?
Think business again, think profit. Bang, bang, bang. Here's my drum. What are your KPIs? Pick 3. If you don't have 3, pick 3. 3 KPIs. And KPIs, let's be really clear, everybody. I mean, I'm sure lots of you guys already know this, but KPIs are measurable. Like, make them smart, specific, measurable, actionable, repeatable. I'm not sure. Relevant is T, and T is timely. Like, They have to be something that is not impacted by the exchange rate, as an example, that you can't control. They have to be things that you can control. Pick 3 that are related to moving the needle for your business. So an example would be, I'm going to increase the visitors to this particular section of my website by 10% in the next 3 months. So that's your objective. You can measure it. You know exactly what it is. You're going to look at the analytics. You're going to fit a baseline. Then you're going to set how you're going to get there. So that's the more tactical a bit. And there might be a soft objective to that. You might know that increasing the number of posts or changing your tone on Instagram, as an example, is going to support that 10% rise. And you know that that 10% rise will drive more sales. You know that for every, because you've got a customer acquisition cost and everything worked out. And if you don't, you're going to get there. Don't blame yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to measure all of that. So the analytics is based on your 3 KPIs. And I mean, don't pick 10 KPIs. You can't manage it. Nobody can manage that.
So those,
And, yeah.
sorry, I want to ask you, so you mentioned one KPI being that part of your website and driving 10% more traffic to it. Can we pick something that's bigger, like sales, or is that too big of a nut? Well,
that is. Okay, so let's say your business goal is to increase sales by 10%. Okay, that could be your business goal. How are you going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know that if you can get 1,000 views in your shopping cart, that your conversion rate is somewhere around 0.6% or 0.4%, whatever. Could be, it's different for everybody, right?
Sure.
It could be that, so you want to increase your sales by 2%. So you know you need to get more people in your shopping cart, because that's your direct line. So how do you get more people in your shopping cart? Well, first you have to get them to your website. So how are you going to get them to your website? And how are you going to drive them to there? So that would be one. Your second business goal could be reducing your shopping cart abandonment. I mean, really, it's the same. It's business principles all the way. Either you're going to increase your sales, you're going to decrease your costs, right? Mm-hmm. Increase your efficiencies. There's mm-hmm. only 2 ways to make money. So just make sure that everything you do digitally is aligned with your business goals.
Right. So it's looking at those business goals and then saying, okay,
Absolutely.
What's the link to digital, and where does it? How do we articulate that from a digital perspective?
That's right. And it can be something, and then you set that up in analytics, right? So you put together all right, this is our current strategy for the next 3 months, and this is how we're going to go and do it. Or we're going to pay ads, we're going to buy ads because Father's Day is coming and our product is awesome as a Father's Day gift. Okay, well, where's our audience hang out? How are we going to do that? This is going to be one of the campaigns that we run. Mm-hmm. So that might be one of the strategies I use. And then you're going to evaluate afterwards. You're going to say, okay, this is what we expect. And it might turn out that your cost per lead acquisition is through the roof and crazy. And you're like, wow, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm going to do it differently. Because just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean it didn't work. It maybe just meant that you got it a bit wrong.
Right. So it's that circle back on the assessment piece.
Yeah, it's a rinse and repeat. So you put a stake in the ground, you say, this is where I'm going. And then you try and get there. You test it, you implement it, or you strategize, you implement, you test, you evaluate, you repeat it. You tweak it, you repeat it. That's your cycle that you're in forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Sounds like go to a meeting with a retailer, go and execute a program.
That's
go
right.
back and talk to them about whether it worked or not. Usually it's your fault that it didn't work, but that's the game we play. And then you go and do it again, right?
That's right. And I think the piece that a lot of people struggle with is that they don't know how to connect that tracking with the plan, or they're too tactical, right? They're just in there because they've got this fear of missing out, the FOMO. Like everybody's, so-and-so said that, I need to change the hero image on my website. Well, is that your most burning need right now? Like maybe it's not, screech. Put the brakes on, figure out if it's making you money. And if you cannot clearly articulate that every single thing you're doing is directly connected to your profit, I would highly recommend that you stop and pause and say, why are we doing this? I mean, my favorite line is, so what? Oh, I'm doing this. So what?
Mm-hmm.
What's it mean to your profitability and your business? And if you can articulate it and it's clear, great, go for it. If you can't, then take a moment and think about why you're doing it.
Great. And I think that we addressed, there are a couple of questions there, and as we're sort of coming, this is always the fastest hour of the week for me on Wednesday when we do our recipes for success. But Lee was asking about 3 simple KPIs, and I think you mentioned probably 3 of them as we were just talking, actually, in terms of what those would be. So hopefully Lee got some of those. And Robert was asking about shipping costs on the website, and which is a little different from the strategy, but it's definitely, we did hear from Carolyn in May that, you know, that's one of the biggest reasons that we lose buyers on the website when they click and they go, oh, the $10 item I wanted is now $18. And and I think and my perspective on that one would be that you have to look at the final price, not one, you know, the product and then the shipping. And you need to find the right value equation. And people are shopping online for a reason, but at the end of it, it's still about the value that your product delivers. And there is a certain value to getting it right to my doorstep. But if I can go down the road and get it, and it's going to be $7 cheaper, then is it really worth it to come right to my doorstep? And I think that's what people got to look at. And I'm not sure, Gayle, in your work, if you've had some different exposure to that part of it, but that would be my perspective, is that it's what's that delivered price to me, and if it doesn't work, if the value's not there, then it's not going to be successful. And you got to find, bundling is another thing to throw in there, that you can get that perceived shipping value down.
Yeah, and absolutely correct. And I would come back to the numbers. The numbers are going to prove out what's working and what's not. And you don't have to, you can run A/B testing, right? And you have to test all of your assumptions. It's like science, really, at the end of the day. You know, we're getting a little bit close to the wrap up, but I think that shipping is about trust as well. And trust is really, really high right now. So if you don't have something out there digitally that has your brand, that has some sort of mention that you're addressing it or trying to address it, or that you are, because we're in COVID recovery now, right? Too, like, we're not in the attack anymore. We're recovering. People are starting to look and open their doors. So make sure you've got a bit of messaging around that. And shipping can be a deal breaker, like, honestly, but be really, really cautious as well that there's a profit in it for you. There's absolutely no point in delivering it for not a profit, and you'll just, you know, make you crazy all the time. You sell a product if you're not making money on it. So you'll have to find a way, and there's other ways to do things. So you just kind of have to be creative.
And it's definitely one of those things that people have to overcome, but it's there are a lot of businesses out there who are competing in that environment. So you also want to see what the competition is doing and what that delivered price would be for a comparable product, to see if you're in the market, right? So
yeah, and again, I mean, we're talking, this is all the tactics. So just seriously invest a little bit of time. And I have a checklist, like a downloadable checklist that you can kind of just, I mean, I can share it with you, Peter, and you can send it out. But it just basically says, like, how capable am I right now in my company? And if you can tick yes to most and no to very few, then you're probably pretty good in the planning stage. But just really do that. And it doesn't take a ton of time to make it happen. But you have to be confident in your decisions that you're making the right ones, and you're not motivated by fear or panic or anything like that, but rather that these are strategically the best decisions to continue me on my path to profit in my business.
Right. And if you have that, Gayle, that would be awesome. And we can definitely share it with people. And I see there's a comment from Pina in Manitoba who's saying, do you have a framework or a template?
Yeah,
so I don't know if you saw that first, or whether whether you were just saying that, but that would be fantastic. I think I'm a big fan of sort of process and giving people sort of that ABC kind of steps to get through something. So that would be awesome. And we can definitely share that with people.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, reach out. It's a complicated thing, but, like, I'm a farmer. I should be wearing plaid. Seriously. I'm a farmer from Manitoba, Tina, actually, if everybody had their own. So, like, just reach out, because you'll be surprised at how clear things become when you're like, oh, is that all I have to do? Yeah, that's all you have to do. Like, it doesn't have to be big, but you do have to get started if you want to be in this game. Get started.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. You do have to just jump in and then start looking and seeing what's working and what's not working. So
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
right.
And as I'm going to wrap things up, if anybody does have any more questions, you can type them fast. And but we always try to make that commitment for an hour, because we do appreciate people are busy and want to. We know they've got other things that they have to keep working on as well. And thanks to Susan, she did put in the chat the link if you want to register for the upcoming sessions that we're having in June. We're doing one next week on building your online community. So we've talked about foundation today with Gayle, and a great conversation. I think we got it all in, Gayle, and we had that great conversation about all of it, which is awesome. So thank you. And we're going to talk some tactics in the next 3 weeks. We're going to talk about building an online community, which is something that I've been working hard in my business. And we appreciate those of you who are in our online community with SKUFood. And then we're going to talk about social media, about posting and the spending on social media. And then the last segment in June with our recipes for success, which are presented by FCC, is to talk about influencers and how they can try to drive some volume for you as well. So lots of great things coming up. And one of the things which I always try to finish with, and I'll give you the last word afterwards, Gayle, but I always like to try to finish with some good news, because people have been through a lot of challenges and they're changing the way their businesses are working. So some of the things I found this week, I'm not sure any of you who are in the cheese category, Girth Pretty had shared something on LinkedIn about 92 people attended the first virtual cheese tasting night. So we're seeing people start to change. Gayle referenced that things are starting to evolve in the marketplace, and people are finding out ways to do business differently. And that's why I wanted to share this one from Girth, is just that people are looking at how do you do your business differently, and sometimes it actually can be better because it's forcing us to change. And I also wanted to share one which I found from BC, and it's Nature's Path. And this was a blog on their website, which they also shared, which talks about how they're protecting their team members. And we see so many sad stories in our industry because food processing is a complicated task. You've got a lot of people often working in a very small area. And so they're sharing what they're doing with their team members. And I think this is so important to share your story, because our food industry has adapted, and it's important. And I think it's also a sense of pride for your employees when they see that you're talking about the things that you're doing to help keep them safe. And last week I did mention this virtual trade show that Food and Beverage Atlantic are doing. And I wanted to put it up again because we're starting to see some of the collateral coming out. And in our business, trade shows are an important piece of the puzzle. And again, it's that piece about doing business differently. So I would really encourage you, if you're not a part of it or you're not in Atlantic, that's fine. But just look and see what they're doing, because in your business, you're really going to probably be challenged to do some of these things this year, and how you build those relationships with your customers and drive volume. So it's pretty neat, some of the stuff you can do. So have a look at Food and Beverage Atlantic. It's atlanticfood.ca is the website. And then the last good news for this week is one that comes from Prince Edward Island. ADL Dairies got together with the PEI potato group, and people who came to visit certain points that they set up on Prince Edward Island received a 10-pound bag of potatoes, 2 liters of milk, and some cheese from ADL. And I think the first time they did it, they distributed over 3,000, and it was so popular that they did it again with 3 more points across Prince Edward Island. So thanks to them for doing that and sharing some of the things, because with their sort of commitment, they don't want to see people go hungry during these challenging times. So we are, as I mentioned, we'll be here again next week on Wednesday afternoon, and we would love to have people here. And Gayle, I do see there are a couple more points in the questions. So let me just check and see if there's anything else. Nothing there. But I will let you have the last word, because we really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for sharing the incredible wisdom you have in this space. So I'll turn it over to you to wrap it up, and then we'll say thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thanks to FCC For sure. And thanks everybody for coming out. I would really just like to leave you with one thing. You can do this. It's only complicated. It's only as complicated as you make it. And I think that the opportunity is definitely there. So don't be scared. Reach out if you need anything, and I'll put together, I'll maybe build on my list a little bit, my checklist, so that it can be sent out to everybody in a little bit more detail. But good luck, and I look forward to hearing from you all again.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here with us, Gayle. And I know I will look at that template for my business as well. And I know that I've seen some comments in the chat from people saying, you know, giving their email, and we do have it if you registered for today. So we will be able to share it with you. And what else did I see there? Crystal from Newfoundland said that the farmers in Newfoundland did that as well with dairy and potatoes. And I saw that in Deer Lake. And I did actually share a picture of that a few weeks ago, Crystal. So thanks for mentioning that. So thank you to everybody for being here. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you again next week, and have a great week. Thanks, Gayle.
Thank you. Bye.